Well, hello everybody. It's Zeke, and I'm here to talk a little bit more history with you. Last time we talked about the American Industrial Revolution, if you remember that. We're going to talk a little bit about expanding west. We're going to talk about what happens when the United States did expand west. There was trouble. There's always trouble. How do you like this? I just picked this up at the tailor's. I got to look nice once in a while when I'm in town. And I'm in town now. I am going to give you some information that you're going to be able to use the rest of your life. First of all, let me just hunt and pick a few little things here so we can backtrack a little bit. Now, as land started to become more of an opportunity for people to have, you had pioneers like this man, Daniel Boone. Have you ever heard of Daniel Boone? I know we talked about him before. Daniel Boone led people over the Appalachian Mountains through what they called the Cumberland Gap. Cumberland Gap. He actually had axemen that cut a road through there called the Wilderness Road. The Wilderness Road through the Cumberland Gap. Okay? In his lifetime, they have estimated about 20,000 people had gone into this new territory that they called Kentucky. Kentucky. Can you say that? Kentucky. They say it's the bluegrass state. Is the grass really blue? It's got a little tinge of a blue taste to it, just a little bit. It's a beautiful place. If you've never been there, you got to go there once in a while. You hear me? So that's where he was, and that's where he was going. James Monroe's president. Now, there were some people that went into what they call the Northwest Territory. Northwest Territory. And there's somebody I want to talk about just for a minute, that you know his name. I'm not going to tell you yet, but I will tell you his daddy's name. Last name, Lincoln. Ring a bell? Lincoln. Not from Illinois. No. From Virginia. Lincolns were from Virginia, folks. That's right. Like many other families, they heard about Daniel Boone's tales of riches in the West and the rich black soil that they had there and the good growing stuff. Even the blue-green grass. They heard about that. They wanted to go there. Yeah. But they didn't get a chance. Like many people with small farms, the families of the Lincolns, they worked and they worked. They wanted land they could buy 40 cents an acre. 40 cents an acre. Now, that might not sound a lot to us, but back then, it was a little expensive. All right? So the family decided to take his chances to go west. 1782. 1782. No, Abraham wasn't born yet. No, he wasn't. Not yet. They followed the Wilderness Road to Kentucky. Yeah, they did go to Kentucky. Settled along the Green River on 2,000 acres. 2,000 acres. At 40 cents an acre, you do the math. All right? Although the Lincolns worked hard on their land in Kentucky, a dispute over ownership, we talked about that. It was whoever got there first encouraged them to move again. So apparently somebody else was saying, "You're on our lands, Mr. Lincoln. We own that." I don't know what it was all about, but instead of fighting for it, they just left. Now, because they heard stories of good land farther west than Kentucky, they went there. Late in 1816. 1816 now. They've been there for a while. The Lincolns packed up all their household goods, their 4 horses, and their 2 children, Sarah and Abraham. Now, ringing a bell? It's ringing a bell now, isn't it? Okay, crossing the Ohio River to the north, they settled on Little Pigeon Creek, in a place called Indiana Territory. Yeah, Indiana Territory there. It was a lonesome country with 2 or 3 miles between settlers. 2 or 3 miles. Imagine your neighbors being 2 or 3 miles from your house. What if something happened? Might take you a while to get somebody to get some help. Might take a little while. Yeah. So anyway, what a wind is really blowing out here, and I'm just having one heck of a time right now. Anyway, Lincoln's The one that would later on be called the President of these here United States, number 16, said this: it was a wild region, many bears and other wild animals still in the woods. The panthers' scream filled the night with fear. Panthers scream. They had panthers screaming. Ooh, that's a little bit better. Bears preyed on the swine, on the pigs that were there. There was about me human beings, about one human being to every square mile, he said. One human being to every square mile. That's a long distance, folks. That's a long distance. Kids, could you go that long without seeing somebody? You'd be walking a lot. You'd be walking a lot. Yes, you would be. You'd be in good shape, I'll say that. Now, the transportation systems, there really wasn't any. There wasn't any transportation except the roads that they were using. A lot of them were Indian paths and eventually became more like wagon wheel roads where they just had pathways, but not real roads until there were some few men that realized they could make some money. There's always a way to make money. And they start graveling and they start smoothing out some places. They would call these turnpikes. Turnpikes. Okay, we know what turnpikes are, but they would start charging people to go on them turnpikes. Might be 5 cents, might be 3 cents, one way. One way. Now, if you decided not to, that's okay. Take your chances through the mountains. We're giving you a easy path to go, folks. It was worth the 5 cents. It really was. So they started making money. As they made money, they made the roads longer. They made the roads longer. Now, in 1806 now, Congress approved government funds to finance something they would call the National Road. The National Road. So government's going to build a road. That's a good idea. It really is. It led to the west. Work on the road did not begin immediately. No, it didn't. Because President Jefferson, who was president at the time's concern was that the Constitution did not provide the government the means to do things like this. There he goes with that Constitution again. It's in there, and you can't go against it. If it's not there, that's what he said. You can't go against the Constitution. Is he right? He's right. He is right. All right. So finally, construction would begin in 1811 after Jefferson is out of office, and $7 million project took 7 years to build. Now, I'm not talking about turnpikes that these guys built on their own. No, it went from Cumberland, Maryland, with Wheeling, Virginia, okay, and it ended up in Vandalia, Illinois. That is a long way. Took a long way to get there, okay? It even went through that county that that country called Ohio. It went through Ohio, the National Road, so people could get on in Maryland, Virginia area, and go all the way to Indiana. A lot safer, a lot safer. The roads had to be kind of maintained. They built bridges over creeks, even rivers. It was a good thing. Now the National Road moved westward with the pioneers in 1830. Now they only had enough money to go so far. You understand? They only had so much money to go so far. So from the day the National Road opened, it was crowded with people. One observer said, "We are seldom out of sight as we travel on this grand track towards the Ohio." Towards the Ohio. Okay, because there's people coming and going both ways. It moved westward in 1830. They said, let's expand this road to Columbus, Ohio. To Columbus, Ohio. Y'all know where that is, Columbus, Ohio? I've been there a few times. I bet you've been there too. Okay? Eventually in 1852, now they started when? 1811. By 1852, they made it all the way to Vandalia, Indiana. So, first half, pretty short, $7 million. So it took a lot of money. Travelers didn't have to worry about ruts or potholes or anything in the road. Um, they had fewer problems with dust. They had fewer problems with mud. Taverns and inns started to appear along the road. People were making money on people staying over. That's how the economy grows. Yes, it is. That's how it grows. And little towns started coming up. So it was a good thing. It was a good thing. All right. Now, another way of transportation, waterways. Waterways. And there was many men that would create things like we talked about the boats going up and down on the Mississippi River, right? We talked about that. Fulton, and another man named John Fitch. John Fitch designed a steamboat in 1785. Could not find any backing. So in 1807, Robert Fulton took the idea. He incorporated some of Fitch's designs in a steamboat, and he's the one that came up with that steamboat called the what? Clermont. The Clermont went up the river and down the river. It was a great thing. So people are on the move. Americans are on the move at this time, and they are going out west. They're finding new things to do. Okay? Now, we're going to get to what I wanted to really talk about today. That was just a little sidetrack. Just a little sidetrack, but that's okay. That's all right. We can do that. So here we go. We are going to talk about after the War of 1812. There were strong feelings of something called nationalism. Nationalism. So understand what nationalism is. Nationalism is a feeling of pride and devotion for your country, for these here United States of America. Do you have nationalism? Do you? Do you have patriotism? I hope you do, because old Zeke's got it right here. Right here. Fought many wars for this here flag, and I've got nationalism in my heart, and I've got patriotism in my heart, and people are still fighting for this flag. They're fighting for you. They are fighting for you. Never forget that. So, people wanted to be independent and self-sufficient. So in 1816 now, citizens of all parts of the United States supported a Republican Party and a Republican president, James Madison. We knew that. We knew that, right? Former Federalists like John Quincy Adams, son of President Adams, joined the Republican Party. Yes, he did. He joined the Republican Party. There was a young man named James Monroe. James Monroe. I know you've probably heard that name before. He was from Virginia. And William Crawford of Georgia. Two Southern boys competed for the Republican candidate in the election of 1816. 1816. We're looking for a new president now. Madison's on his way out. Monroe wins by a very narrow margin. Very narrow. It don't matter. It's a W. It's a win. And he's in. He is in. All right. People liked him. They really did. People did like him. Now, he had 183 electoral votes, and his competitor was a Federalist candidate, a Federalist, like old John Adams was, named Rufus King. He had 34 electoral votes. That's a big difference, 183 to 84. 34, I'm sorry, not 84. 34, that's even worse off. Whoo! It's a lot with ciphering for me, okay? I've been through a lot, and I just don't cipher like I used to. But I do know that 183 is a lot more than 34. 183 is a lot more than 34. Yes, it is. So the United States was enjoying great prosperity. What's that mean? Everything was just going good. People were working. There was money flowing. They were going out west. There was the National Road was on its way. It was a good time. The new president spoke in his inaugural address of a national unity, of get together, being together as one. general agreement, he proclaimed this, that national honor is national property of the highest value. Honor. National honor. National honor, okay? So there's that pride that we have. For a brief time, we had something called the Era of Good Feeling after the War of 1812. That's what it was called, the Era of Good Feeling. People just felt good. They felt good. It's windy, but it's also cold out here, and Zeke's got to have his tea. Now, outgoing President Madison, his last message to Congress in 1817 expressed America's growing mood of nationalism. So remember that word, nationalism. That's feeling pride, right? The War of 1812 had given us that. And Jefferson's idea of central government with limited functions could not meet the need of this growing nation. Things were changing, Mr. Jefferson. Was he still alive? Yes, he was. Yes, he was. He would see a change. And I think that he realized that things were changing. You can't remain a country that just grows crops all the time. You need to get out there into the real world. We just had an industrial revolution. We need to do something. So, sounding more like a federalist than a Republican, Madison urged federal government to guide the growth of trade and industry. Totally opposite of what Jefferson wanted. Totally. Things got to change, folks. Things got to change. But you got to use your noggin up here. They got to be smart about it. And they were. They did a good thing here. So the Republican Party made a change from favoring states' rights to championing federal power. Uh-oh, I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like that. Just a little bit, but not too much. Just a little bit. Federal power sometimes can get out of hand. So can states' rights. So can states' rights. Some of the governors of these states think that they're the president of the United States. They're only governor of their only state. So there's got to be a balance there. There's got to be a balance. Even today, there must always be a balance. So there was a man. His name was Henry Clay. You remember Henry Clay? He was Speaker of the House back in the day. Still Speaker of the House. Okay, proposed a national program to improve the nation, and he called it the American System. Sounds like a good name. Now, what did that American System do? Well, I'm going to give you a few things. They're going to raise the tariffs on anything coming into this country. That means taxes. Anything coming into this country, they're going to raise the taxes up. It's okay. It's okay for a while, as long as people still want to trade with us. He's going to have internal improvements. Internal improvements means building bridges, building roads, building canals, like the National Road. That's good too. That's good too. You got to be safe when you're out there. So you got to build things that are going to last. We all know that. He designed a system to halt the growth of sectionalism. Sectionalism. And he saw that was happening in the country already. That means there were sections of the country that were off on their own. They were still part of the United States, but they were thinking a little different than each other. You had the North, you had the South, and you had the West. You had three sections out there. And they're all thinking different things because they live in different places. Not everybody agrees with everybody else. So, not all congressional leaders are going to agree with him. Because there's a couple more things he's going to do. Let me tell you. Henry Clay wanted other parts to become law. He wanted other parts to become law. And in 1816, they are going to back something that is called the Bank of the United States. Now, we already had a Bank of the United States. We already did. They brought it back. It got taken away for a while. So let me read you a little bit of history on banking in the United States so we kind of understand this and what goes on here, okay? First of all, the banking in the United States was established in 1791. 1791. Who was president? Washington was president. Yes, he was. President Washington. It was there to serve as a repository or someplace that you could put all the federal funds and as the government's fiscal agent. That's why they had it there. It would hold all the government's money. Not a bad idea. No. Initially, it was proposed by Alexander Hamilton. Now, you know, old Zeke's not a real fan, but he was a smart man. He was a smart man. The first bank was granted a 20-year charter by Congress. 20 years. Wow, 20 years. In spite of the opposition by guess who? The Jeffersonians. Yep. Who it represented the dominance of mercantile over those that were growing crops. In other words, factories and mercantile over crop growers, agrarians. You know, Jeffersons were all about growing things and not having big factories. They felt that this would have more factory workers and more factory owners benefit than the agrarians growing the crops. A bank based in Philadelphia with branches in 8 cities, so it branched out, conducted general commercial business as well as acting for the government. It's a government agency here. It was both well managed and very profitable, but it won the enmity of entrepreneurs and state banks who argued that its fiscal condition was constraining. In other words, the money it had, it was constraining economic, how can I say it? Development. It was constraining economic development. They needed more money. The bank was holding on to it, only giving to those that they wanted to. Was it corrupt? Is anything corrupt? I don't know how corrupt it really was, but others were troubled at this, and this is what Jefferson didn't like either, is that two-thirds now of the bank stock, you know what stock is, we talked about stocks, was held by the British, by British interest. The British controlled two-thirds of the United States banking. Now, you know, that can't be good. That can't be good at all. The people that were against this, working with agrarians, opponents of the bank, succeeded in preventing renewal of this charter in 1811. They stopped it right there. And the first bank went out of operation. So in 1811, it was gone. You got to kind of think about it. If the British own two-thirds of your banking, not good. Now, eventually, there's going to be some problems because financing the War of 1812 led to a revival of interest in a central bank. In 1816 now, that's what we're talking about, the Second National Bank of the United States was established with functions a lot like the first one was. The second bank's initial years were very difficult, and many felt that it was mismanaged. Eventually, it would bring on a panic of 1819. What do you mean a panic? Kind of like a small recession, almost a depression, but not quite, where people were fretting about their money. How about that now? I'm not going to tell you too much more about that because we're going to talk about that kind of stuff later. But there's financial woes happening in the country, and they decided to bring this bank back. So in 1816, they brought it back. Didn't they know what happened in 1811? Couldn't they remember that? That's why history is so important, because if you don't watch it, you're doomed to repeat it, even the bad things. Even the bad things. They should have known about that. They should have. Now, what happened was there was a result in what they called inflation. Okay, inflation, and it's inflation means a rapid rise in prices of all goods. Rapid rise in prices of all goods. Nobody could afford it. Nobody could afford things. So what happens? Those that are making the goods have an abundance of them. Abundance. They can't get rid of that stuff. And they need to get rid of it. So prices did drop. Yeah, prices did drop. But people just didn't have the money. They were out of work. They were out of work. Wow. So American families could buy less. They also, without a national bank, the federal government had no safe place to keep anything. So that's why the Second National Bank of the United States restored order to the money supply. It restored order to the money supply. It would help American businesses grow. So this time, it won't be managed like the other bank was. Hopefully, hopefully. Now, another problem was with this economy now. And this economy there was a flood of goods from England following the War of 1812. But didn't we beat them? It don't matter. War don't matter. What matters is this: money. They want to trade as much as we want to trade. So they would. Factories in Britain, often more advanced, turned out a lot of goods that were higher quality than American made goods. So people were buying them up. And the prices were good too. Well, what happens to American made goods that are the same kind of things? They're not getting bought. That means Americans aren't making money. The people working in the factories aren't making money. Time to do something. So here's what they did. The Republicans followed another one of Hamilton's Federalist ideas. So them Federalists, they weren't all bad. No, they weren't all bad. They had some good ideas. And the idea was they would pass a bill in 1816 to impose something called a protective tariff. A protective tariff. The new tariff taxed imports, raising the prices of imports and protecting American jobs. Because if something cost, let's say $35 and it was British, and American made stuff was $40, well, everybody's going to buy the British stuff not only because it's cheaper, but because it's better made. Why would you want to buy the American stuff? So the protective tariff raised that up to $45, and now the Americans is cheaper. It's cheaper. Now they will buy it. They're watching their pennies. They are watching their pennies. So more Americans started to make money. Now you can't keep those protective tariffs forever because those other countries will stop dealing with us. Lately, and one of the countries that we've been dealing with is China. China hasn't paid any tariffs, not protective tariffs. They haven't paid any tariffs in probably the last 35 or 40 years. But guess what, folks? They're paying it now. Oh, yes, they are. They're paying it now. They don't like it, but they're paying it. Guess how much the United States is making off of China right now? About $600 billion in roundabout. $600 billion, and they're paying it. Now, they don't want to pay it, but they're doing it because if they weren't going to pay us, we just weren't going to take their stuff. They decided to call up the president and say, we'll take that deal, and now they're paying. I got some news for China. Americans are starting to make their own stuff. We aren't going to need everything that they're giving us no more. Medicines, things like that. Americans are going to start making their own stuff. You watch. You remember old Zeke said this. We're going to be self-sufficient here. We already are with our oil. We have our own oil. We don't need to worry about nobody else's. So that import-export stuff is real important here. This trade is real important. Now we're going to get to something that I don't know if I'm going to finish this today or I might have to wait. I'm going to tell you one last thing, and then we're going to go on and give you another little watching time. Okay? Let's see. I want to talk about one thing, and that's sectionalism. Sectionalism. So let's just talk about that just for a second, and then we're going to be done. Different regions in the countries had maintained different interests and different priorities since the colony time. I can't even talk today. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I think I'm just looking at myself here. Any case, in the early 1800s, three distinct sections developed in the United States, and that is the North, and that is the South, and that is going to be the West. And I'm going to tell you one thing right now. We're going to stop this. Oh, yeah. Hey, we're at, oh, my goodness, 31 minutes. We're at 31 minutes, all right. We're going to stop this, and we're going to carry this on next time. So you remember to come back. And after you watch this today, take care of yourselves. Yes. You know, there's people out there that love you, and there's people that you love. So what does old Zeke tell you? You tell somebody that you love them today. Respect them and help them, especially those that are staying home. Help your folks out, get some things done, and be kind to people. We'll finish this on next time, so you all come back and we'll have another spot for you to watch. All right? Okay now. Bye.